Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 39 of Lore Lords. I am excited for this one because now that I know what the subject is, this is something I know Atlas has been crazy interested in for a really long time, and now he gets to talk at me about it for a while. So that's kind of cool. Welcome, Atlas. I hope you're doing well today, my friendo.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Are you?
Right.
Are you alive?
Oh, I'm rocking it.
Dude, that's sick. You know what else is sick?
What?
Tonight's topic.
Also, this artwork by Mellow Fellowship, fantastic.
It's amazing. It's great. I love my beard. I think it's great. I wish I could have that in real life to be that pronounced.
Right.
So yeah, this week I'm bringing our first mythology episode, which
Let's
is
go.
which is something I think we're both into, right? That's like a
Hell
big
yeah.
thing for both of us. And instead of doing something like everyone knows, I figured I would start at the beginning, like the first mythology, right?
Yeah, let's do this.
We're going to go back as far as you possibly can. And we're going to be covering one of my favorite mythological characters, which is from before the time of Greece, before the time of Egypt. We're going all the way back to Samaria, where we are covering none other than history's biggest Chad, Gilgamesh. What do you know about this guy? What's your knowledge?
I did know that. I actually didn't know he was a myth, to be honest, as silly as that sounds. I thought that Gilgamesh was like a real person that just lived back then and was like the first known leader, because I didn't know anything about him on the mythological sense. So when I heard that he wasn't real, I was like, oh, I feel
Oh, he was
duped.
real. He was real.
Oh, well then, okay, then never mind. Ha, suck it, nerd. So I did know he was a leader. And I knew it was Babylon. I knew, or like Mesopotamia. I knew that. So like I had that. And I knew he was like the biggest, jackedest motherfucker. Also
Yeah.
because of, in Civ 6, you can pick Gilgamesh and he's just like this thick boy with big arms.
He's like a bronzed, ripped dude with this great face. Yeah, he was a real person, and we're actually gonna go into the history of him after we go over the myth of him. But yeah,
Okay.
he's from Sumeria. That's the nation he comes from, which is I think generally agreed upon the first civilization of all time. A lot of people say
Right.
that Egypt is the first like organized civilization, because Sumeria was a
Right.
bunch of like set up like city states basically, but they all were considered Sumerians. And
That's cool.
his myth comes from what's called the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is a story that has been told technically longer than any other story simply by its age.
Fair.
And despite this, its actual contents are pretty scarcely known due to it being lost for 1800 years. But we did find it in the 1800s. Even when it was lost, the story was orally handed down, as references of the names of the characters pop up throughout history during the time that this epic was pretty much like not like findable via print. People still were talking about it. And the tale is told originally on a series of 5 clay tablets, and they're written by the Akkadian Empire sometime around 2150 BCE. This predates Homer by 1500 years.
Jesus Christ.
But even then, that's just the written version. It was orally told much longer before that, probably around 4000, around that time, BC.
I'd love to know what the original story was, because there's no way it played that game a telephone for that long and stayed
100%.
intact.
So we still do have some Sumerian clay tablet records of the story. The general story is the same, but of course details changed.
Right.
Sometime around the 18th century, we would see the 18th century BCE. Sorry, so not like our, this is 1800s BCE. We would see 5 tablets combined into the first epic ever written, and it was titled "Surpassing All Other Kings."
That's cool.
Only a few tablets of this still exist, and they're carefully held in museums today. That's what I was just talking about. This is like the original Sumerian version.
Gotcha.
After this, sometime between the 13th and 10th century BCE, we have the standard Babylonian version, which is titled "He Who Saw the Abyss," which is a sick title.
That is so. That's like a metal band.
Yeah.
That's so sick.
That's the Babylonian version, which is 2/3 longer, and because it combines all the stories and poems of Gilgamesh and fits them into the epic.
Cool. That's so cool.
Because there was originally 5 tablets, which was the epic, but there was a bunch of other solo tablets that were stories of Gilgamesh, and the Babylonians pretty much put it into one big story. And this is what's known.
Clearly, human beings have been smart for a long time, because that's good.
Yeah,
that's some good production.
That's good production value. They got good editors.
Yeah, great editors.
So this is what we know now as the Epic of Gilgamesh, and this is a 12-tablet tale. It is the most well-known version, and we got almost nearly complete copies of it recovered from the library of 7th century BCE Assyrian king Ashurbanipal, which is he's a pretty famous guy too. We could do a whole episode on him. Big Assyrian
kind of
king.
A big deal. Yeah.
So in his tomb, he had the Epic of Gilgamesh on tablets, preserved. So we got them from there.
On tablet, yeah, just
we found a Gilgapad, and it was on there.
Yeah.
Needless to say, it's an old story, probably the oldest story that we have intact today. And like all other mythology stories, it has a lesson to be learned in the end. And it's something that has inspired the works of many others since then. And we are going to start off today's episode by going over a summarized version of each tablet to the best of my ability, based on the work of multiple scholars of the years, starting from the 1800s. And I've done this, I pretty much made my own summary. I'm calling this the Atlas translation.
Nice.
There's going to be some things said that probably weren't said. This is meant for Zoomers and Millennials to understand, okay?
Oh, that's perfect.
Okay. So we're going to go into part 1, the Epic of Gilgamesh. I'm literally going to go through the entire epic, so here we go. It's a lot, but not too much. And if you know mythology, you're kind of knowing what you're getting into, where things just happen and things aren't explained, and just weird things just occur. So the first tablet begins with introducing us to the hero of the story, the main character, the biggest Chad ever to be born, Gilgamesh. And he is the king of the great city Uruk, which is the biggest city in the world at this point. And he is not only the king of the greatest city, because that wouldn't be enough. He is also 2/3 god, 1/3 man. Which is an interesting way to record it, not saying half and half. I don't know.
Well,
I don't know where the math comes from that. But
he comes from a long line of gods fucking humans.
I guess so. Yeah. So this god king rules over the city of Uruk with an iron fist, oppressing his people. At this point, he's not very chill. He's not a chill dude at the beginning of our story here. And the reason why he wasn't a chill dude is he would abuse a law that was called, I don't know how to pronounce this, Doit du Segnir, which
that almost sounds like a Norse thing.
It's DOITDU SEIGNEUR Signir.
Nope.
Doit du Signir. Anyway, translates to Lord's right. That's what that means.
Okay.
And this was a law that stated that the king has the right to sleep with brides on their wedding night.
Oh my god.
And Gilgamesh, being the way that he is, was really into that.
Oh my god.
So,
just being he loved weddings, man. Oh,
yeah,
he loved
was
weddings.
Every wedding. The king, the god king, he showed up at every wedding. A bit weird, right? So he would exercise this because,
Jesus Christ,
as we talked about, Gigachad. And it was common for him to show up at every wedding happening in the city and sleep up with the wife before letting the husband be with her. And many women hated the god king for this, and they were upset, as you might imagine.
I'm sure.
But it wasn't just the women who were upset, because the men were upset, and not just because he was sleeping with their wives, but because they were oppressed in their own way, where Gilgamesh would exhaust the male population by putting them to work as hard as possible, with long days and nights of putting them through sports games, tests of strength, and mostly just hard labor. Now, what do you think he had them build?
A giant pyramid.
No. Not a bad guess.
I don't know.
But statues of himself. Statues of himself.
Right, okay.
Yep, there you go.
Yep.
Because there's nothing else than to build monuments and shrines to how great you are.
Yeah,
So,
of course. That's what I'm going to do.
yeah, so Gilgamesh just had the men in the city just building statues of him everywhere and the surrounding areas, making sure everyone knew who was responsible for the greatness of the city of Uruk. So the people of the city had to pray to the gods for assistance because this was getting out of hand. And for help against this oppressive ruler who was superhuman, the gods decided they would listen to the people.
Wow, that's nice.
Yeah, and in response, they came up with a plan to stop Gilgamesh, a way to kill him in battle.
Oh, all right.
Yeah,
Jesus,
because he was a demigod. They didn't want to just put him down. You know, he had to have a fair shot because he was kind of one of them. So the gods created an equal. They created a being strong enough to stop him. This would be an animalistic man known as Enkidu.
That's cool.
If you're a fan of Final Fantasy games, you'll know that you might find familiar with that because every time Gilgamesh shows up, he's with a green, either monster or chicken named Enkidu, and this is why. This is the connection. Enkidu was a man. He was covered in hair, often said to have legs like a goat, and large horns. He was a wild man living in the forest outside of Uruk, and he would eventually be spotted by a trapper who found out that Enkidu was responsible for his traps being destroyed, and his game not being as populous as it once was, because he was a superior demigod being, so he was very good at catching animals and eating them.
Oh.
The trapper would travel to a shrine and plead with Shamash, the sun god, for help with this. And I want to start saying this now at this point in the story. We're going to see a lot of Shamash. He's one of the gods of the Babylonian pantheon.
Right.
Chillest god in the myth I've ever seen. Shamash gets it. He's a chill-ass dude. And this is a great example. He saw reason in the trapper's plight. He didn't want to ruin this dude's life just because of the plan the gods had to deal with something this guy has no involvement in.
Right.
So he's like, you know what? You're right, dude. I'm not going to fuck you over. So, as a response, he arranged Enkidu to be seduced by a woman named Shamhat. And Shamhat was a temple prostitute, which at this time was an extremely respected and sacred job. And Shamhat would be responsible for the first step of taming Enkidu and introducing him to civilization.
Getting him that pussy.
Oh,
Sorry,
absolutely.
Yeah, no.
That is literally what's happening.
Yeah, but that does change a man.
Yeah, it does. It turns him from an animal to a man because after 6 days and 7 nights of not just constant lovemaking, but also teaching Enkidu about the ways of civilization, she would take Enkidu to a shepherd's camp to learn the ways of becoming civilized. So,
wow.
Yeah. During this time,
she's kind of a cult leader psycho, isn't she?
Well, she's a priestess, temple prostitute of Shamash, so she's a powerful person.
Yeah, she uses her body against men.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. She's kind of controlling him, but she's putting him down a path. Yeah. And during the time of this camp, well, Enkidu was there learning things like speaking Sumerian, I guess. Gilgamesh would begin having dreams. And the dreams he would have at night would be about the imminent arrival of a beloved new companion.
Oh.
He would ask his mother, the goddess Ninsun, to help interpret these dreams. Spoiler, it's complicated. All right, Tablet 2. Tablet 2 begins with Shamhat bringing Enkidu to the camp, where he would begin eating a normal human diet for the first time, learning to speak, and he would learn to fight, becoming the camp's first night watchman.
Cool.
And when a stranger passed through the camp from Uruk, he heard tales of Gilgamesh's treatment of the new brides, and Enkidu did not like this. And he became upset that the injustice was happening, and that the god king himself, Gilgamesh, everyone was supposed to love, and was a demigod like him, was just having sex with everyone's wife, and Enkidu was pissed, right?
Yeah.
So he would travel to Uruk and try to stop him.
How'd it go?
During a wedding, Gilgamesh would be going to the wedding chamber, as he does, and he saw an imposing figure before him, stopping his advance. And this figure was none other than Enkidu, who won't let Gilgamesh pass. And quickly, they begin battling each other in a fierce fight where two equally matched, superpowered, godlike beings are duking it out.
Cool.
Think Goku and Vegeta at this point. This is a similarity that's going to keep going through the story as well.
That's awesome.
And as they're battling it out, in the end, with Enkidu in a headlock getting super noogies, he has to give up, as Gilgamesh has defeated him in combat. And Gilgamesh decides to spare his life, because he's never had such a good battle before. And so Enkidu, who is sent to kill him, immediately, they become best friends. So that plan backfired.
I guess so.
But it ended up working in a way, because seemingly, with his new bro, he's just done with this whole newlywed sex thing. And loves the fact that he has a bro to go crush shit with.
I mean, that's all anyone wants is a friend.
Yeah, so he's like, friendship ended his oppression. So
That's kind of nice.
He proposes to Enkidu an idea. He says, let's journey to a place called the Cedar Forest, and let's slay an infamous monster and demigod named Humbaba. And we're going to do this to gain fame and renown. And both of us will get super famous and renowned. I'll get more famous and you'll get famous, kind of thing.
Right.
Enkidu advises against this because he says not only is Humbaba very dangerous, but the gods might not like us just killing a demigod for just a good time. And
right, that's good logic.
Gilgamesh thinks short and hard about this and disagrees. And then goes to seek advice from his council of elders on the topic. That's the end of Tablet 2.
Hopefully the elders aren't as dumb.
So Tablet 3 is very short. I think it's heavily damaged, so we don't have a lot of the writing in Tablet 3. But what we do know is it starts with Gilgamesh speaking to his advisors on the subject of broing out and killing Humbaba. And while he is a dangerous demon, they still advise against it, saying it may anger the gods and get you killed. Gilgamesh basically just says, nah, bro, and goes to get Enkidu, and they begin preparing for their journey to the Cedar Forest to go kill Humbaba. So that's one last piece of advice, though, for help on the journey. So he visits his mom, because why not? I guess he can just do that. Again, another myth thing. He can just go talk to his godmom, who supports the idea of going after this thing. And so she contacts the chillest god of all mythology, Shamash, and gets him on board as well. And he blesses their adventure, and before they head out, Ninsun, Gilgamesh's mother, adopts Enkidu, officially making him Gilgamesh's brother.
Aw, that's like they kind of both get what they wanted.
Yeah, so they're kind of broing out. They have the god of I think he's the god of wind and sun, Shamash, is on their side. And so Gilgamesh goes and speaks to his council, who leaves them instructions on how to lead the city, which may or may not involve other people's wives, I don't know. And then goes out with his best bro to crush some demons. Tablet 4, we start off seeing Gilgamesh and Enkidu journeying to the Cedar Forest. And every few days of this long journey, they stop and camp on top of a mountain, and they perform a dream ritual to get foresight into what's to come. And Gilgamesh would have 5 terrifying nightmares about falling mountains, thunderstorms, wild bulls, and a thunderbird that breathes fire.
Oh, that is all scary things.
Yeah. And Enkidu interprets these dreams. And despite the fact that they literally all symbolize Humbaba, he says it's a good thing. And he says that, don't worry, these are good omens. And these dreams are going to carry us into battle and defeat Humbaba. And Gilgamesh is like, bro, you're right. Let's fucking go. And so they fist pound each other. And the dynamic duo begins to approach the Cedar Mountains, where the Cedar Forest is. And they hear Humbaba bellowing out. And the two get immediately terrified and have to stoke each other out to get enough courage to enter the forest.
Maybe they shouldn't do this.
Well, you think so? You think bad things are coming?
I don't know.
We're on chapter...
Maybe one will turn Super Saiyan.
It's very well might happen. Starting on chapter 5. We're starting Tablet 5, I guess, chapter 5, if you want to call it. Tablet 5 starts with them entering the forest proper, and they are immediately met by the demigod demon Humbaba, who's guarding the forest. He opens up this meeting by insulting and threatening them, which I guess is expected of a demigod known as a demon.
Yeah, I guess so.
And he first accuses Enkidu of being a traitor, since he knows he was made to stop Gilgamesh, not be his best bro. That's his first poison word. His second one is he threatens Gilgamesh, vowing to disembowel him and feed his flesh to the birds. So
pretty straightforward threat.
Yeah, and this scares Gilgamesh. He's never been talked to like this before, and he's like, "Oh shit, is this guy for real?" And
he was just so earnest.
Yeah, and he's like, "Wow, this guy just talked to me like that. Like, what's happening?" And then Enkidu says, "Don't worry, bro. We got this. Let's take him out." And so they both attack Humbaba. The battle commences, and the mountains quake and skies turn black with the powder of their blows. So this is basically like the Frieza Saga end fight happening. Like the planet is literally shattering under there. The tablet describes the Earth breaking and heat rising, which I'm assuming is how they say lava.
Yeah, probably.
So Gilgamesh pounds down on Humbaba, and eventually the battle comes to a halt because they're so equally matched. When Shamash, the god of chillness, sends down 13 winds to bind Humbaba in place, and Gilgamesh captures the demigod. Now, Humbaba really wants Gilgamesh to chill out and pleads and begs for his life. He offers to crown Gilgamesh the king of the forests and to cut down the trees for him and be his slave.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That's a pretty big thing for a demigod to say, too.
Right.
So Gilgamesh begins to pity him, and he's like, we don't need to kill this dude. He's a demigod. He's one of us. He could be our thing. And Enkidu says, no, Gil, listen to me. You need to kill him. Because if we kill him, we'll be super famous, and no one will threaten us again. And Gilgamesh is like, you're right, and then immediately cuts his head off.
Oh, geez, that was a fast consideration.
Yeah, you gotta listen to your bro before you listen to your enemy, I guess. So,
I guess.
He dispatches the demigod with one swift blow to his neck, and then casually goes to Humbaba's home and butchers his 7 children.
That's probably not necessary.
So they can't come after you later, I guess. But yeah, he just did that, like right after. He just went and stabbed a bunch of kids. So after he Anakin'd out, the 2 heroes cut down a bunch of trees, including a giant cedar tree that Enkidu said he wants to plan to fashion into a gate for the temple of Enlil, god of storms. That was just thrown in there, so that's cool, I guess.
That's nice.
Yeah. They used the rest of the wood to build a raft to carry them and Enkidu's giant log, and followed the Euphrates River back to Uruk.
Right.
Returning with one giant log and the head of the demon Humbaba. They're cheered by the people and welcomed back as heroes. And this seemingly ends Gilgamesh's reputation as a bad guy, and now everyone loves him.
Well, that's good. He kind of needed that.
Yeah, so now he's a good guy. We love Gilgamesh now, right? Ignore the sleeping.
Right.
Now, to be fair, it was legal sleeping with women on their wedding night. He didn't make the rule up. He just abused the rule.
It's the law of nature.
Yeah, it's the law of he's a king and a god, kind of. So
you heard him, ladies.
Yeah. So, Tablet 6 is one of my favorites, and this starts off with a story we actually talked about in Lord Lords before. This is the part we covered in the werewolf episode.
Oh.
Yeah, this is the story of the goddess of love and war, Ishtar, who proposes marriage to Gilgamesh. And she is famously known for being the most beautiful creature in existence. Every man desired Ishtar. She was like the hottest thing to trot the world and the heavens, right? Like she's literally the god of she's the god of love and war and beauty. So she's like not only hot as hell and obviously the best lover ever if you're the god of it, but she knew how to fight. And she would protect you, and you had the best lovemaking of your life with the hottest person. That sounds great. So people were constantly trying to be your wife. And if you remember, we talked about it in the trying to be your husband, I should say. We talked about it in the werewolf episode where a guy spent his entire livelihood making offerings to her. And she said yes. And then when he got so happy that she ended up thinking he was silly and turned him into a wolf.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so that's what happened here. That's her, her life. And so she's, the subject of every man's desire. So when the god of love, who was the super hottest babe ever from heaven, comes down to Gilgamesh, the god king, and wants to go down, honor him and get married, what does Gilgamesh do? Gilgamesh pulls the ultimate Chad move and says, "Nah, bitch, you're crazy."
Boom!
He just,
and then his buddy was behind him going like,
"Oh, shit."
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was like, "You just got fucking fried, bitch."
Yeah, he turned her down. The first person ever to turn down Ishtar because of what she did to her exes. He knew the stories. He's like, "Nah, I'm not getting into that. Like, you're crazy. I'm not going in there." And Ishtar, very not happy about this. Doesn't know how to handle rejection.
Yeah, no.
So,
right, it's fair.
what do you do when you don't know how to handle rejection? You cry and run to daddy.
Oh.
And who's her dad but Anu, the king of the gods and the leader of the Babylonian pantheon? So,
Well, that's not good for Gilgamesh.
yeah, well, Anu says, and this is my quote that I wrote down. This is my text. My translation of what Anu said is, "You need to relax, kid. I'm not going to kill a demigod of the biggest city of man because he's hotter than you are." And she responds with one of my favorite things. This is like actually what she said to the tablet. This blew my mind when I read this. "If you don't do something, I'm going to raise all the dead who ever died, who will outnumber the living, to devour them all."
That's a pretty bold threat.
Yeah, so after saying that and inventing the idea of the zombie apocalypse, Anu is a little freaked out and goes,
Yeah.
"Okay, listen. I'll give you the bowl of heaven. But if I give you the bowl of heaven, Uruk will have to suffer 7 years of famine." So Ishtar gets really into this plan, and so she provides 7 years of rations to Anu, I'm guessing, to give to Uruk. That's never clarified as to why that transaction happened. I figured it'd just be like, oh, your worshippers are going to be suffering for 7 years. But I guess, like, I don't know. She gave him 7 years of rations and to help out Uruk. And in return, she gets the Bowl of Heaven. This is a massive god beast that is capable of causing untold levels of destruction. And she leads the Bowl of Heaven to Uruk, where, unsurprisingly, he causes untold levels of destruction.
Oh, no.
The bowl manages to lower the level of the Euphrates River, which dries up the marshes, causing the 7 years of famine, right?
Oh, that makes sense.
And its rampage causes huge pits to open up, which swallow over 300 men each, which at this time, it's a lot of people. Nowadays, it'd be like 30,000. This time, without any divine assistance, Gilgamesh and Enkidu have to go to battle against this giant god beast. Not with, like, Shamish watching their back, right? Like, they're like, oh, we're on our own now. But Gilgamesh's people are getting attacked. So what does he do? He runs up to the god bull and tears its heart out.
Cool. Good job, bud.
Yeah, got it. Easy, I guess.
Yeah.
He tears the heart out and offers it immediately to Shamish, with Ishtar there watching.
Wow. That's big balls move.
Yeah. And what does Ishtar do? She gets really pissy and begins to literally cry and scream. That's what it says in the tablet. And it's kind of like annoying, I said. It basically mentions it's like piercing. I don't know if that means it's hurting people or just really annoying. So Enkidu tears off the bull's hindquarters and throws it at her, hitting her in the face.
Okay.
She cries the final time and runs back to heaven.
Okay. That's fucking hilarious. Shut the fuck up.
Literally is what happened. He just tore the ass of this bull off and threw it at her. And she got hit in the face with a bull's ass.
That's embarrassing.
Yeah.
You don't.
She's also the god of war. Why couldn't she take care of him herself? I never get that. If she's the god of war, she should probably be good at killing things, right?
Yeah, but he's the Gigachad.
I guess. She was so scared of him. He was too chatty.
He's Goku. He's got ultimate potential.
So this has the city cheering their names, hailing Gilgamesh and Enkidu even more. They just saved, Uruk and Sumeria from being rampaged by a god bull.
Right.
And this tablet
Good job, guys.
ends, however, on a bad note, with Enkidu getting an ominous dream about a future failure.
Oh, no.
And in Tablet 7, we start off with the rest of this dream, which is the gods have to decide in heaven that one of these two heroes has to die in response to what they've done. They've not only killed the demigod Humbaba, but they also killed the full-on god Gugalana, which is apparently, unknown to us at this point, the Bull of Heaven himself.
Oh, oops.
So they killed the god of destruction.
I didn't mean oops. That big oops, guys.
Yeah.
Big mistakes.
So despite Shamash being the chill guy he is, saying, no, you have to spare these dudes. It's not their fault. That bull attacked them. Like, it was this dumb lady.
Right.
He was overruled, and the gods decided that Enkidu must die.
Well, Dems be the breaks.
Yeah. So in a totally just response, Enkidu curses the gaze he made to honor the god Enlil, and even curses the trapper that found him, and curses Shamhat the temple prostitute who tamed him. Shamash appears to Enkidu, and reminds him that Shamhat fed and clothed him, and even introduced him to the shepherds, which would end up leading him to meet his best friend Gilgamesh. And Enkidu takes back his curse, and even bestows a blessing upon Shamhat instead.
Oh.
Enkidu then has a second dream, where he sees himself being taken captive to the netherworld, which is what they call the underworld in Babylon.
Fair.
And he's taken captive to the netherworld by a terrifying angel of death. So he describes the underworld as a house of dust and darkness, whose inhabitants eat clay, are clothed in birds' feathers, and are supervised by terrifying beings.
Okay.
I'm assuming the inhabitants are dead people. Like, that's what happens when you die. That's why it's scary.
Probably.
You become like a clay golem and have to wear itchy bird feathers and eat clay.
That sounds great.
Yeah. So Enkidu soon grows ill and begins to get worse. After 12 days, he's finally reaching his breaking point, and he laments that he could not die in battle in heroic death, and curses his slow death due to the god's will. After this, Enkidu dies. And Gilgamesh famously clings to Enkidu's body, refusing to believe it, and denying his death for days until a maggot drops out of the corpse's nose.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So Gilgamesh,
Gross.
pretty upset that happened. His bro got killed by the gods. So Tablet 8 starts with Gilgamesh being super crushed about the loss of Enkidu. He delivers a lament for Enkidu in the city, where he calls upon the mountains, the forests, the fields, the rivers, the wild animals, and all of Uruk to mourn the death of his guy, Enkidu. He recalls their adventures together during this, and begins to tear away his clothes and hair out of grief.
Oh, what the hell?
Yeah, he literally rips his hair out. And you can find pictures of this part of the story where he's like balding, because that's him ripping, after ripped the hair off of his top of his head.
Oh man, he's so sad.
Yeah. So he commissions a funerary statue to be constructed of Enkidu, and provides grave gifts from his treasury to ensure Enkidu has a favorable reception in the realm of the dead. After that, Gilgamesh holds a great banquet in the city, where he feeds the entire city out of his own pocket, and the rest of the city, in response, offers treasures of their own to the gods of the Netherworld in Enkidu's honor. Just before it's unfortunately a damaged space in the tablet, so we lost some of it. It seems like Gilgamesh dams the river Euphrates to bury Enkidu's body in the riverbed, which is an honor done to kings. That's like a kingly burial at this time.
That's cool.
You get buried in a riverbed. So that's the end of Tablet 8 of Gilgamesh, basically having a funeral service.
Well, I'm glad Gilgamesh is like turned around from being like a wife banger to now being like a good guy who feeds all of his people. He's not banging everybody's wives.
Yeah.
He just misses his bro.
He went from being so reviled and oppressive king to being the hero of the people.
Now that's a good turnaround. That's a good arc. That's a great arc.
So Tablet 9 is when things get pretty rough for our boy Gilgamesh here.
All right.
He begins to wander the wilds wearing nothing but animal skins, in a mad fit of grief over the loss of Enkidu. Lost without his bro, and for the first time in life dealing with the loss of death, he becomes fearful of his own mortality, and begins to panic. Gilgamesh decides to seek out a man named Utnap-Ishtim in an area known as the Faraway, and learn the secret of eternal life. He knows the story of Utnapishtim because he was granted eternal life along with his wife after being the only two survivors of the Great Flood. They were the only humans ever to have been granted immortality by the gods, so he decided he's going to seek him out and ask how to do it. Gilgamesh crosses a mountain pass at night and encounters a pride of lions. Before sleeping for the night, he prays for protection against the beast from the moon god Sin, which she seemingly listens to him because he wakes up and with his bare hand thrashes the lions to death and eats them and wears them.
Well, if he can do battle with somebody and shake mountains, I think he could probably take out a lion.
Yeah,
so I believe.
I'm guessing it's a whole pack of lions because it says multiple. But yeah, that and
Fair.
a lot of Gilgamesh art, you will see lions involved. If you look at like the back, which I'm guessing is going to be a thumbnail of the video too, but the background of our live stream now, there's a little lion on the bottom. There's always lions involved, and this is why. It's just he just kills a pack of lions with his bare hands. So I guess that's pretty metal.
Yeah, that's true.
After a perilous journey forward, he arrives at the twin peaks of Mount Mashu at the end of the earth.
Ooh, cool.
He comes to a tunnel which no man has ever entered, and it is guarded by two scorpion-like monsters, who are a married couple. Love that detail.
Okay.
The husband scorpion monster attempts to dissuade Gilgamesh from passing, saying no mortal can do it and he will surely die. But before he can complete his argument after hearing Gilgamesh's tale, his wife intervenes, displaying sympathy for Gilgamesh and allows him to pass.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Yeah, not a fight with scorpion monster. I'm imagining like a scorpion king and a female version, and they're all intimidating. He's like, no, bro, don't do it. And the wife's like, let him go. Just let him through. He'll be great. And he does, and then he's just chill.
Those are great characters. You know, it shows you that not everybody scary looking is mean. Sometimes they're just soft little babies, and you need to be friends with them and bake them cookies.
And sometimes you just want to give a scorpion a nice little belly rub.
Oh.
So he goes in the tunnel and goes along the road of the sun, as I guess it's called, and he travels in complete darkness as he follows the road for 12 double hours and manages to complete the trip before the sun catches up with him. Don't know what that means.
I have no idea.
No one knows what that means.
Yeah.
For the record, people have tried to figure out how that could make any sense. I'm assuming it just means each hour is like slowed down. Like it takes 2 hours, like time slows down in this weird pass.
Like you ran so fast.
Or like, no, I think it's more like when you're going through the road of the sun, which is so like, that's why no man can survive it. Times like move slower or something. So it like takes longer to get through it, maybe. That's my interpretation of it. So since he was so heroic, he was able to survive. He had the stamina to pass through it.
He used instant transmission.
Basically. So he gets through the tunnel, the road of the sun, and he arrives at the Gardens of the Gods, where trees grow jewels and fruit. And that is the end of the tablet.
Oh, okay.
So now we have Tablet 10, which is Tablet 10 Tablet 10's, okay, the Tablet 11's the long one. Tablet 10 has us see Gilgamesh wander the Garden of the Gods until he meets an alewife named Siduri, who believes Gilgamesh must be a murderer or a thief based on his disheveled appearance and horrible smell.
Yeah, that would do it.
Yeah, I'm guessing he smells like BO and lion guts. He tells Siduri of his story and travels to get here, and she immediately recognizes who he is as Gilgamesh and tells him to stop because he can never make his quest. Gilgamesh, however, doesn't give in and eventually annoys her enough where she points him to a man named Urshanabi, the ferryman. Gilgamesh eventually reaches this Urshanabi and begins to tell him the story of everything that's happened to him and his boy Enkidu. And during this, he is thrown into a spontaneous rage. And during his fit, he breaks Urshanabi's stone charms. And after the story, Urshanabi tells him, well, I can't help you now because you just broke my charms and let me cross the waters of death, which are deadly to the touch.
Thanks.
So Urshanabi instructs Gilgamesh that if he wants to cross, he has to cut down 120 trees in the garden and fashion them into punting poles. For some reason, that works, because the next line, they're just across the water. And I don't know if they made a bridge out of it, or something, because he has a ferry. I don't know, but apparently I don't even know what a punting pole is, to be honest.
My brain immediately went to football.
Yeah, exactly. Like a stick you can kick, I guess.
I don't know.
But yeah, so anyway, they're on the other side of the water. And there was a damaged tablet piece, so we don't know the full story. I don't know. But they end up on the other side of the water, where Utnapishtim, the guy who's immortal, lives. And he immediately reprimands Gilgamesh, declaring that fighting the common fate of man is futile, and not only that, it diminishes life's joys.
Oh, okay.
So
That dropped a truth bomb on him, I guess.
he kind of made it be like, you don't want to be immortal. What's wrong with you?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of agree.
Yeah. So Tablet 11 is the biggest tablet we have. And this is where Gilgamesh begins. This story, it begins with Gilgamesh making an observation to Utnapishtim, saying that he isn't much different than himself, and asks how he could obtain immortality. Utnapishtim tells him that the gods long ago decided to send a great flood to wipe out humanity for reasons, I guess. So to save Utnapishtim, the god Enki told him to build a boat, provided him with precise dimensions, how to seal it up with pitch and bitumen, and to make sure it could not take on water. He then had his family go on board, along with the craftsman, and told him to bring 2 of each animal. Sounds like something. So
Christians stole everything. They stole all their stories from somebody else.
yeah, this is like the original story. Just keep in mind, 4,000 years probably before this written version was over 2,000 years before BC. 2160 BC is the date we believe that this was written by the Babylonians. A violent storm then arose, which caused terrified gods who didn't expect how bad it would be to run to heaven. Ishtar, the lady who we love, who cries to her dad, lamented the wholesale destruction of humanity, and the other gods wept beside her. The storm lasted 6 days and 7 nights, after which, quote, all human beings turned to clay, end quote.
Uh-oh.
Utnapishtim weeps when he sees the mass destruction of the world. His boat was lodged into between 2 mountains, and he released a dove, a swallow, and a raven. When the raven fails to return, he opens his ark to free its inhabitants in the area that is the Garden of the Gods. So we now have a man and a woman in the Garden of the Gods. Interesting. Weird. Anyway, Utnapishtim offers a sacrifice to the gods, who smell the sweet smell of sacrifice and come down. One of my favorite lines in the entire epic is Ishtar, crying to your daddy lady, vows that she won't forget her brilliant necklace on her neck in the same way she won't forget this time.
Romantic.
The vein of that woman. The other gods begin to argue about whether or not this was a chill move to make, and they get pretty upset that some humans lived. The gods of storms, Enlil, ends up granting immortality to Utnapishtim and his wife. But he points out to them this is a unique gift, and only they can receive it.
Okay.
So this is what Utnapishtim told Gilgamesh. That it was just for us. The God, you can't get it, kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
And Gilgamesh still wants to try. He says there has to be a way. So Utnapishtim makes him undergo a trial. If Gilgamesh can stay awake for 6 days and 7 nights, he may gain immortality. For that was the length of the flood.
So that's how you have to do it.
Gilgamesh falls asleep on night 1. And Utnapishtim instructs his wife to bake a loaf of bread on each day he is asleep, so that he cannot deny his failure to keep awake. Which is a neat way to count time, I guess. Bake a loaf of bread. So. I guess, does it take like a day maybe to bake the bread? So there'd be no way. We didn't have this bread and you fell asleep. So now we have it. So you were asleep. You can't lie to me, kid.
I guess.
So Gilgamesh,
it's a sly way to figure it out.
Yeah, it's a very weird thing. Gilgamesh, who is seeking to overcome death, sees his own inability to overcome sleep and gets pretty majorly bummed out.
Oh.
Utnapishtim has the ferryman Urshanabi come to him, and he has him clothe Gilgamesh and bathe him because he's going to send him back to Uruk, and says, "You look disgusting." But before they leave, Utnapishtim's wife insists that he give a parting gift to the God King, and he agrees. He tells Gilgamesh at the bottom of the sea there lives a box thorn-like plant that will make him young again. So, on the way back, Gilgamesh proceeds to bind stones to his feet and jump out of the boat and reaches the bottom of the sea, and he finds the plant. He plucks it out, but he doesn't trust it, because he doesn't trust the gods anymore after what happened to Enkidu. He has a pretty good reason.
Makes sense.
So he says he's going to test this god plant out on an old man in Uruk to see if it turns him young again. Gilgamesh stops to bathe, and the plant is left out and is stolen by a serpent, who sheds its skin immediately as it departs so he can never be found again.
Wow, what a little cheeky bugger.
Yeah. So Gilgamesh breaks down in tears, weeping at the futility of his efforts because he has lost all chance of immortality.
Why doesn't he just go down and get the plant again?
That's a great question. He returns to Uruk, and upon seeing the great walls he had built around the city, he is filled with pride, showing them off to Ur-Shanabi and realizing how great Uruk is and what a great accomplishment of man and himself it is, because he built the walls, and they're so impressive, and he's filled with pride and joy of his own life.
That's good.
Tablet 12 is very weird, because we actually aren't sure if it's part of the epic. This is theorized to be an Akkadian translation of an earlier Sumerian poem titled Gilgamesh the Netherworld. It has been suggested that it may be a piece of the original Sumerian story that we don't have existing record of, and it doesn't fit. It's inconsistent, right? It doesn't match the canon of the epic. Let's put it that way.
Right.
Because in this, it just picks up where it left off, with Enkidu and him chilling in Uruk, as if he was still alive. And Gilgamesh is spending this time chilling with Enkidu, complaining that a lot of his various possessions, such as his drum and his bell, which I guess he's very proud of, have fallen into the underworld. And Enkidu,
oh no.
Yeah, oh no, hell took my drum and bell. So Enkidu says, no, bro, of course I'll help you out, my dude. I'm going to go down there and get him. And Gilgamesh is like, dude, this is a great idea. Like, I love you, bro. Let's go down there and get him, man. So here's
You're
what...
not dead. I'm definitely talking to you.
Here's what you have to do, Enkidu. And here's everything you have to do to not go in the underworld. So he makes a list for Enkidu. Because if he doesn't follow those rules that Gilgamesh laid out for him, he'll be trapped there forever. So Enkidu finds a way to get to the underworld, because I guess that's just something he can do. And he does the exact opposite of everything Gilgamesh told him to do. So Enkidu ends up being trapped down there forever.
Wow, way to go, bud.
Yeah. He didn't get, I guess he got the drum and bell, but he got stuck down there. Gilgamesh prays to the gods to help get his bro back. And Enlil and Suen don't listen to him. They say, shut up, Gilgamesh, you're stupid. But you know who does listen to him? Our chill god Shamash. Sure as hell says, Gilgamesh, I got you, guy. Let's open up a crack to hell. So he does. He just opens up a crack to hell in Gilgamesh's throne chamber, where Enkidu's ghost jumps out of it. And
does he have the stuff, the drum and stuff?
It doesn't say. Oh. But that's the end of the tablet, with him questioning Enkidu on what he had seen in the underworld.
Well, that's kind of nice. Enkidu got saved.
Yeah.
For the kind of.
Maybe.
I mean, he's still dead. But...
yeah, we don't really know. I mean, maybe he's chilling with a ghost with him. I don't know. Weird.
Yeah. It's like when Goku came back for the World Tournament for one day. He was dead, but technically...
Enkidu's just with him, but he's got a halo.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this epic wraps up like most myths do on Tablet 11, I'm going to go ahead and say, where we get a lesson. Gilgamesh had a fear of death and being a fear of meaninglessness, right? And through his failure to gain immortality, the quest itself gave him meaning and the appreciation of the life he has and will continue to have.
That's nice. Yeah, that's a good life lesson.
Yeah. And this story...
and he also learned not to be a total pervert.
Yeah, not banging everyone's wife. I mean, maybe he went back to it, but I'm assuming not. I'm assuming he stayed chill. So this story has been repeated countless times since then. It's a story we've heard of someone going to try to do something like find eternal life and failing and then being humbled, right?
Yeah.
And this is, this is where it comes from. So now we're gonna go.
Yeah.
We're gonna go on to the second part of the episode, which is the history of the matter.
All right.
We're gonna talk about historical features of Gilgamesh, historical facts of Gilgamesh, and Uruk and Sumeria in general.
Oh wait, he didn't fight anybody like Super Saiyans in the sky?
I don't know. I mean, I can't say he didn't. I wasn't there. No one was there that we know. So now that we know the Epic of Gilgamesh and his whole deal, let's talk about the Chad King himself. In reality,
Let's go.
Gilgamesh is generally agreed upon by historians to be a real person. He was the king who ruled the great city of Uruk sometime in the 26th century as the city's fifth king. Uruk was the heart of Sumeria, the first major civilization and the first major city in its lands. There was other cities before this that existed, such as Eridu, but that city was mostly just a temple. It was a giant temple where people would kind of gather, and there was some homes, but it was nothing like Uruk.
Gotcha.
And Uruk had reached a population of over 90,000 people, which during the age of Babylon and Gilgamesh's age is believed to be around 20 to 25,000 people.
Wow.
And while this may not sound like a lot today, that is exponentially higher than other cities and villages having anywhere from 20 to 50 to 100 people.
Oh, sure.
So, like 25,000 people, that's most of the world's population at this point.
Yeah.
And Uruk was the urban center of the world during its time. Its ruins still exist today, and they can be visited. It is known as Warka, Iraq. This city was built sometime around the 4th millennium BCE, which, that's a long time ago. just to grasp, Egypt is the 2nd millennium BCE. So this is another 2,000 years before that we had Sumeria.
That is pretty fucking insane.
Yeah, and this is responsible for the age of its prominence being called the Uruk period, which lasted from 4,000 BCE to 3,200 BCE. And this 800 years is where we saw for the first time in history people moving from small farmers to small farming villages to an urban center and actually stay and not just trade.
Wow.
So Uruk on the map, which you kind of mentioned knowing from middle school, the Tigris and Euphrates River, right?
Yeah.
As even mentioned in the epic, it was held right on the Euphrates River. But it wasn't just on the Euphrates River, it was in between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers.
Oh,
so
yeah, that's like the primo spot.
Yeah, the primo spot. And this has allowed for the domestication of grain they were growing for the first time ever.
Hell yeah. Good job, guys.
Yeah.
That's, I forgot what I was going to say. Shit. Never mind. Go ahead.
All right. I'll keep going. This quickly led to it being the biggest Mesopotamian settlement, and it quickly caused people to flock to it and share in its bounty, especially after it had very famously large walls that were built during its fifth king's period, Mr. Gilgamesh.
Right. Well, okay. Yeah, no, I remember what I was going to say now.
Yeah.
I'm very blown away that very early on in human history did we like the idea of living in a bigger community like cities. I mean, obviously LA is a ridiculous place, but it's like, we've been doing this for a long time. Like, we want to find comfort in more people.
Yeah. People want to move away from hard labor and live in comfort and doing things they want to do, which Uruk was the first time in history that happened, which we're actually about to talk about.
Oh, great.
Because
good segue there.
Uruk had a surplus of agricultural goods. Now, this got it attraction from people to facilitate trade, and invented the concept of an open market. People also, for the first time, began to specialize in crafting goods for sale, such as pottery and wagons, instead of making them out of necessity on farms. So people were like, I'm going to make pots. Because I like making pots, right? I'm good at it. Before, the years before, when you lived on a farm, you made pots because you needed something to hold something. Like water or grain, but now people are just doing it to do it and then sell for people to bring back to their farm. Wagons the same way. And they invented the pottery wheel very early on, which allowed for pots to be mass produced for the first time.
Civilization discovered poverty. Congratulations.
Yeah, exactly. They did it.
Would you like to move on to irrigation or shipbuilding?
Well, irrigation happened, I think, before that, technically. Because they would have already had their so that irrigation already they invented, which they did invent. by the way.
Well, you fucked up, Civ, then. Civ 6 fucked up. 'Cause
You're right. Maybe it was after, because maybe they used the clay that they would make into making bricks for that kind of thing. I think it was after. That makes sense to me. Either way,
okay.
Uruk did invent irrigation,
Yes, that I did know.
And they invented something else, writing. And
Cool.
and they
Yeah,
started the
yeah.
first
Okay.
known written language. And this language would be picture-based and very similar to Egyptian hieroglyphics.
Cool.
But soon, due to confusion, it would become a language similar in structure due to modern ones, which is a very famous language known as cuneiform, however you want to say it. I've heard it said both ways. But cuneiform, you've probably seen it before. It looks like a bunch of lines and dashes with like little poker. It's like if you looked it up, you'll probably be like, oh yeah, this thing. Like it's in our you've seen it in school history books.
Okay.
And we have a lot of examples of it. So many clay tablets of cuneiform because it would actually be the main language of Mesopotamia until 75 CE. So it lasted over 4,000 years.
That's insanity.
Yeah.
Good job, guys.
It's not a complicated language to learn or understand. It just means like it makes like saying one sentence a lot of text. It's very simple. It takes a long time to say what you need to say in cuneiform, but it's easy enough that anyone could learn it back then. And it got lost too after 75 CE. There's just no more record of it until the 19th century when we found it again.
Whoa.
So yeah, it just became a lost language for a long time.
That's kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah. So the reason that writing came into existence, can you guess why they needed writing?
Because of money and commerce.
Taxing
probably?
people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
you're right.
Kind of nailed
You're right, yeah. Taxing people. For the first time, there was so many people in one area, officials just didn't know everyone by name. Literally for the first time in history, they just needed we need to make sure people actually give taxes. So people would offer tax in this time, not even usually with money. Money did exist. Currency existed. Uruk didn't invent currency, but it made it more common because people mostly just traded goods. But money did exist.
Sure.
But even though some people would donate money, but money was so rare, and it was so rare to even have money, that people generally paid taxes in food and pottery.
Oh, okay.
Or if you're a brick maker, bricks, that kind of thing. Things that they would physically use.
Your specialty, yeah.
And the reason why you got taxed was so that the priest class and the ruling class could be fed and have things like pottery. So this led to the invention of political corruption.
Yeah, wow, we really started early.
I just threw that in there because obviously you're paying the rich to be richer.
Right, exactly.
It just like if you're part of the priests and ruling classes which led society, obviously you didn't need more, but they wanted more, so they taxed people for more. And they were too lazy.
It's supposed to go back to the people and the government, yada yada.
Yeah.
No.
It keeps us from letting you die, I guess, and living in our walls. Well, Uruk played many roles in history, as we mentioned. It was a major pivoting point for our species, for sure. It is historically best known by people nowadays to be the city that was ruled by the god king Gilgamesh. And it is said that his father was the previous king before him, King Lugalbanda, and he has two ancient Sumerian poems of his own. And they both focus on his magical abilities, which predate the Epic of Gilgamesh. His mother is said to be Ninsun, the holy mother and the great queen of their pantheon of gods. So like the Hera, right, to Zeus.
Yeah.
It was, I think Anu was the head, as I said earlier, with the leader, and it was Anu and Ninsun were a couple, and Gilgamesh was her son. Which this left Gilgamesh to not be a man, but a demigod. So, official records that we have of the time, known as the Sumerian Kings List, which is a recorded record by the Sumerians of all their kings as they happened in cuneiform, is listed to have rulers of Uruk, and on the fifth one, we see Gilgamesh, and he not only was a ruler of Uruk, he ruled for an unnaturally long time, being 126 years.
Jesus Christ.
He is also mentioned to have super strength and being able to build buildings with one hand.
Okay.
So, while likely this is probably not real, we don't know why he is recorded like this, but no other king is.
Yeah, that's so weird.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just a running joke that as time went on, back in the BC era, they're like, haha, this is funny. Yeah, he was such a Chad. Huh? Yeah, what a Chad. And they kept it going.
Yeah, I mean, my theory is that his influence was just so profound, and that legends of his deeds just grew. And like grew and grew and grew. And then it's even more likely that he would use his demigod blood as a way to ensure his leadership and make enemies fear him. Because I'm assuming if his father was a self-proclaimed famous magic magician, a man who used like wizard basically, he probably told Gilgamesh as a baby, hey, you're a demigod.
Right.
So Gilgamesh probably grew up believing it, just thinking that's what life was. That's who he was.
Right. Probably.
And that can mess with your psyche a bit, I'm sure.
Yeah, if you tell a small child, oh, by the way, you're part God, that's probably going to fuck with them when they get older.
They're going to think they're a lot hotter shit than they are. And the thing is also interesting, though, is that this record would remain stating positive things about him even after his death. Because king stories that we have who are like that during their life, when they're like shitty kings and they're shitty people for acting that way, once they're dead, you see the shit talk roll in. Like, you see everyone, no one ever shit talks Gilgamesh in history. He's always the greatest. So it's like, we don't know what why he was like, it's weird. It's a weird thing to have written down. Like, was he like, I don't know. I don't like believing in ancient aliens, but I don't know. It's pretty weird. It's a pretty weird thing that they have him listed because everyone else has realistic ruling lines, and his is 126 years.
Yeah, like he came down as an alien, like helped shift society in a certain direction, and then was like, "Oh, I'm dying," and then just left.
What if he was just a half alien, like a demigod?
Oh,
a demi alien, maybe.
Yeah.
So later Mesopotamian kings would also invoke his name for power, claiming they were part of his godly lineage. Which this is a practice we also saw much later in the medieval Europe times, where many lords and kings would claim to be part of the lineage of Alexander the Great and have the powers of gods on their side. So this is a thing we've seen multiple times in history. Shulgi of Ur, who ruled from 2029 to 1982 BCE, claimed that he was also the child of Lugobanda, the priest king and Ninsun, and that he was the blood brother of Gilgamesh. Now, while he claimed he was a demigod, and while he wasn't recorded as living a long time, having a long rule, having any super attributes, he was recorded of being a great king, and is widely considered to be the greatest king of the Ur 3 period, which is after Gilgamesh.
Oh, sorry, Gil.
So after Gilgamesh. So during Gilgamesh's time, he was the greatest. But Shulgi was said to be the greatest after Gilgamesh. We can't say for certain when the Epic of Gilgamesh first began being told, because it did exist orally long before being recorded. But it's likely this would only happen years after his rule, probably hundreds of years. And we do have a few pieces of historical record of Gilgamesh as well. Besides the Sumerian Kings list we mentioned earlier, he's recorded on clay tablets to have led the construction efforts of Uruk's massive walls. He is also mentioned by King Enmebaragesi of the Kish.
Nailed it.
Yeah, I think that's how you say it.
In
his having talks with Gilgamesh, like they have trade deals and stuff like that, and it's recorded.
Oh,
so like he had relations with Gilgamesh, and we have those transactions and their opinions of each other, which are both positive, in written down text.
Man, that's so crazy. Why can't we have a good ruler like Gilgamesh again? If we had such a good ruler like Gilgamesh, maybe he deserves to bang everyone.
We just need a dictator who's a good guy. I'll do it.
Technically, any government can work. It depends on if
just
good
needs
people
good people. But again, Uruk invented corruption. So thanks, guys.
That's true too.
Another great thing happened in history, which is cool. In 2003 CE, so currently, a German team of archaeologists claimed to have found the tomb of Gilgamesh.
No way. Is he still jacked?
He's still jacked in there. They used modern technology, like LiDAR scans and stuff that we've been using in like Amazon now, which uses like magnetism basically to like scan the floor and see shapes.
Oh, cool. What?
Yeah, you can look up like the Amazon pictures of it now. We found like entire cities under the Amazon rainforest. So yeah, they did it in the Middle East, And over the old riverbed of the Euphrates, sure enough, where Uruk is, they found a ton of structures under the sands.
Cool.
And many of these structures are described almost in perfect detail in the Epic of Gilgamesh and other tablets at the time, including Gilgamesh's tomb. And the legend states that he was buried at the bottom of the Euphrates due to the water being parted by the gods upon his death.
Yeah.
So under where
carpenters,
yeah, but like even in the myth, he dams the river with carpenters to bury Enkidu.
Yeah.
So you know, but yeah, like I said, that's where people buried kings, and it said he did it on the Euphrates, and they found a building matching its description. Unfortunately, can't really get to it without massive earth-shifting construction efforts. So no one's been down there.
Right.
But hopefully one day we'll get down there.
I mean, there's got to be other ways you can dig underneath. I've played Minecraft before. You can still kind of
just hit it.
Know.
Just hit the earth.
Yeah.
Move it. No, I mean, I looked it up and I found a lot of people like, oh, like that's like they found, you know, Uruk's actual like original location, because we do have some buildings of it you can go visit, and they're like on the surface and they don't look that big, and now people are like, oh, because they're buried. It's like we're seeing half a temple, like that's all we're seeing, kind of thing, and now we know that. So I think they are. It's a constant work of archaeologists over there. They're working on it always, you know, slowly digging it out. But one day, hopefully, we'll get in that tomb, and we'll even see baby Gilgamesh's skeleton.
Yeah, and again, he's still gonna be Chad.
Or he'll just be down there.
That's actually exact. What if he's just alive down
there? Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, he's just eating an apple. Oh, dudes, what's up? That'd be.
Sorry, I'm spending a lot of time in Malibu.
Sorry, just got back from the Fornia. He flips up his surfboard.
Yeah, man. Dude, I got these fucking apples over
here. Imagine we open it up and he's dressed like an actual Mesopotamian, like he's got stuff on, but he's got the backward shades, like where the shades are on the back of his head.
Yeah.
Like, where did you get that? Venice? Ever heard of it?
He could just, he could still like pop up and around sometimes. We wouldn't know that's him. We'd just see a big Chad looking guy and be like,
yeah, big ripped Middle Eastern looking dude.
Guy.
Again, that Middle Eastern dude looks hot. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then but all he's doing is he's just existing, because he actually did. That's the truth, guys. He did find immortality.
Yeah.
They tell you he didn't, so that we have the sad story of Gilgamesh. But he just wanted to bury it. Hey Gilgamesh, if you're watching right now,
big fan.
Big fan.
Yeah, big fan. Come, we'll have you on as a guest.
Yeah, I'd love to ask you, what the fuck were you thinking before all this stuff happened to you, and you were just banging everyone's wives?
Probably thinking he was horny as fucking bored.
He was bored. Yeah, he needed a bro. All he needed was a bro.
Yeah, literally.
All he needed was a friend.
People were too afraid to get close to the god king. So that once he got another demigod who wasn't afraid of him, they became bros. So yeah, the tale would be heavily read and reprinted up until the fall of the Assyrian Empire in 612 BCE, and regained popularity again once it was translated in 1879 CE. He in between those times, however, the story remained and was spread orally, if nothing else. There could be just copies that were destroyed. We don't know, Sure. Also, just for historical, for people to understand, during like the end of clay tablets and early paper period, all destroyed. They were very flimsy, and they're basically all gone. We have a massive gap in written history because papyrus is not very good for writing on. It doesn't last long. So that's like why it's really hard to find. Like when we find like Egyptian papyrus, you have to be like super careful with even touching it, so it doesn't just instant dust in your hand. So it's likely I
actually have some.
Yeah. I think I had some too. I think I have a little square. It's like a little tiny square in a little glass little thing. I probably don't. Probably in a storage unit somewhere. But I had it as a kid, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. I got it from like some mail service. You got yours from Egypt, I'm guessing, because you were actually there.
Yeah, it was my grandmother's, and when she passed away, she gave it to me, which is cool.
Yeah, that's cool. It's probably also a lot cooler and bigger than mine. Does it have writing on it?
Yeah, it's got like a it's got like a thing on it.
Mine was literally like pinky nail sized little piece of papyrus. I was like, this was recovered from.
I'll find it
Egypt.
somewhere and get a picture of it.
Yeah. So it likely the Epic of Gilgamesh likely was written down on that kind of paper, and it's just all gone, so we don't know where it is, or somewhere we haven't found yet. Gilgamesh is mentioned as a giant in the Hebrew Bible alongside Humbaba as well. So
Like giant is in like towering
I
skyscraper
I
over
don't
people, or like
know the Jewish Bible at all, but
fair
so I
enough.
don't know what it's talking about. But that is all I found. I saw this in things that he's referenced in. The name Gilgamesh and Humbaba are said as giants shadowing over or something. So the name, existed to them.
Fair enough.
There's many other inspirations for the epic existing today, such as, Noah's Ark. Anyway, Gilgamesh's tale would inspire others.
Adam and Eve.
Yeah, Adam and Eve. For the rest, his tale would inspire others the rest of history and make itself religious text during the Age of Babylon. He's often considered a Babylonian mythological figure. All the god names I used in this episode today are part of the Babylonian pantheon. So in the original text, they were likely the same gods, but with different names for Sumerian.
Oh.
But it's the same god. They worship the same gods.
Okay.
So the grief Gilgamesh felt after the death of his friend, who he loved like a brother, where he questions existence and resonates with anyone who suffered loss. His struggle against the apparent meaninglessness is what defined Gilgamesh, and it defines most of us today. And his quest continues to inspire those who recognize how human that struggle really is, even for a demigod king. And to end the episode with this statement, in the end, I like to think he ended up succeeding on his quest to gain immortality, because here we are 6,000 years later talking about him and saying his name.
Yeah, that is very true. I mean, who's more... I guess technically he's one of the most famous people that's ever existed ever.
Yeah. He's still in our minds.
Because he's still in our minds.
And he's
in our hearts,
yeah.
in our minds, and in our wives.
It's in our wives. Yeah. That's all I got today for Gilgamesh. Now you know who he is.
Thank you very much. This was fun. This was really good. I like this. I like mythology in general. And it just, you can hear what so much pulls from.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like the Adam and Eve and the Noah's Ark.
Literally just Noah's Ark. Like, not even different. Just a different name for the guy.
Even different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Noah's a lot easier of a name to say than Utnapishtim.
Yeah, they're like, they're just like, Noah. That's better.
Do you want to say Utnapishtim? No. Oh, got it.
No. Perfect. Noah. Yeah. That's sad to know that an entire name was a mistake.
So, yeah, that was our first mythology one. I want to do more, and when I do mythology episodes, I like also going over the history of what it likely was. So I'm going to try to do that.
Yeah.
And honestly, since I started with Sumeria, I'm probably just going to keep going in chronological order.
Why not?
Right? Like, why not? Like, Egypt's next, that kind of thing.
Yeah, right. I love Egypt. I know a lot more about that.
Or the Mayans, maybe? We don't really know. That's the thing with the Mayans. We don't know when the Mayan stuff really comes from.
Yeah, they could have been around during this time.
Well, we know they were. We have evidence of Incan cities and stuff being from
Right.
2000 BC Egyptian times. So,
which is fucking crazy.
Yeah. So, something like that. But yeah, that's the end of the episode, guys. Thanks for hanging
a lot
out.
for listening.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Bye.